Okay, so Goldback is the name of the monetary system. It's also the name of our company, right? But the brand Goldback, and you can go to goldback.com to find out about it. The idea is, how do we fix a lot of the real big problems that we have in our monetary system? Speaking of politics, back in the day, there have been people who perennially have said we should go back to the gold standard, for example, in our monetary system. We should make it so that a dollar is worth a dollar's worth of gold. And that'll keep, for one thing, politically, it keeps whichever party's in power from spending uh, absolutely irresponsibly, because they will only have so much gold. Right now, though, they can just print more money. You know, they can just make inflation run away with it if they want. Uh, there's some reasons why that's not always a good idea, but they'll still do it. There's still been a huge amount of deficit spending based on the idea that, well, we'll just print more money. So a lot of people, and it does skew conservative, will say, let's go back to the gold standard. But here's the problem: if we were to go back to the gold standard, there's no magic switch. You can't go into the Federal Reserve and pull some magic switch, and bam, we're back in the gold standard. It doesn't. Our monetary system doesn't work that way. It'd be really complicated to make that change, even if you wanted to. Number two, back in the days of the gold standard, it's not like we didn't have any problems. We still had rampant counterfeiting. We still had all kinds of other deficits. The reason we got off the gold standard was twofold. One, we had some liquidity problems. From time to time, big economic growth would happen, and then nobody had anything to circulate. Nobody had any actual cash to spend. And so you needed more tokens of value, more representations of value, so that people could really get the economy going more quickly. And in situations like that, even inflation isn't as big of a problem as liquidity. You want liquidity, you're not so worried about inflation. The number two reason, though, is that because we had this hybrid system with gold and silver and copper, and we had these paper notes that were exchangeable for gold or silver, but did they really have the gold and silver? It was, they could do what's called fractional reserve banking. There's a whole history to that, where they could say, look, we've issued 100 certificates that are all exchangeable for a silver dollar, but we've only got $3 silver, but we have 100 certificates, things like that. And that was to drive that liquidity. But it became somewhat untethered from the silver that it was supposed to represent. And so in 1971, the whole system was about to collapse because of a deal between our bank in the United States and the Central Reserve Bank of France. The French bank said to the American bank, we've got a bunch of these certificates that are exchangeable for silver dollars. We would like to exchange our silver certificates, which are paper cash, right? We just want to exchange our paper cash for the silver that it supposedly represents. We'd just like you to send that silver over here to France. Problem is, France alone had more certificates than all the silver in the United States of America. There was no way we could possibly deliver them the silver. It didn't exist. We'd made too many of the silver certificates, too many of the silver notes, and without backing it up with actual silver. And so uh, technically, we could go back to it, supposedly legally, because all Nixon said was, we are temporarily suspending the convertibility of the silver certificates for the silver dollars. That, of course, is not true. It's not temporary. It's very much permanent. There's no way you could just go back on that. Anyways, they had their problems back then too. They had some big problems there. The other problem that I hinted at is that gold, silver, and copper all have different exchange rates. You can speculate one against the other. If you've got multiple metals that you're using, it can create other problems. So, for example, the Dutch East India Company was trading a different rate of numbers of ounces of silver to gold than the Americans, well, not Americans at the time, the colonies had. And so every time a ship went between Europe and America, this is in the 1600s and 1700s, before 1776, they would trade their silver for gold at the banks before they went back, because they could trade for a better rate on the other side of the Atlantic. Same thing between China, by the way, and Europe. This created all kinds of problems because all the silver ended up concentrating in Asia. All the gold ended up concentrating in the United States of America. And gold, as great as it is, I love gold. I mean, we're called Goldback. Um, Gold can't be spent in small quantities. You have to spend it in huge quantities because one gold coin, just to give you perspective right now, one gold coin is worth more than $2,000 today. What happens when you've got a gold coin in your pocket? Good for you. But what about if you want lunch? You want to buy a sandwich? They're not going to be able to give you change for that. And you're not going to be willing to give up your gold coin that's, worth more than some used cars for a sandwich, right? So you've got to find a way to make it divisible, make it useful. This is in money terms. We talk about the philosophy of money is based on the different uses you put to your money. And this use is called fungibility. In other words, your ability to make change depends on the fact that it doesn't matter if you represent $20 of value by a $20 bill or 21s or 4 5s, right? You got to be able to exchange it any way you want. That way you can make change. Well, gold has never been able to do that. Even in the ancient world, ancient Egypt, when they were building the pyramids, probably, we know that they traded in gold. But just even a small gold nugget was still worth a lot more than what you could do for a small purchase. So instead of buying a sandwich, you'd buy a shipment of grain for the gold instead of something as small as a single loaf. And so you have other ways of representing small things. So anyways, at Goldback, we're looking at all these problems. Okay, we've got political problems, we've got exchange rate problems, we've got the different speculation problems between different metals. How do you overcome all of that? Now, about the same time as Goldback, another thing became popular to try to fix that, and that was cryptocurrency. But their problem is that cryptocurrency has been wildly unstable. I can't put a price in the store. I can't go to Walmart and see the price listed in Bitcoin or Satoshis, which are the smallest pieces of Bitcoins. They don't list a Satoshi price because they can't. It goes up and down and up and down too much to say that you know exactly what something is worth in that system. So it fails as money too because it has to have a set value, a value that's stable, that's measurable, that's comprehensible, that's not going to change on you, right? So here at Goldback, thinking about these problems, our founder, Jeremy Corden, was working for a place called Legal Tender Services and the United Precious Metals Association. And their goal was to take these $2,000 gold coins and have fractional ownership. You could buy just a couple of pennies worth of that gold coin. The gold coin would sit in the vault, and then we could exchange partial ownership of it for little things like, groceries or gas or whatever. And the problem is that without being able to hold the gold coin in your hand, without being able to remove it from the vault, being promised partial ownership in a coin, it didn't really appeal to people. It wasn't going anywhere. And so gold was still not being used as money, even though Utah passed something called the Utah Legal Tender Act, making these gold coins legal tender. But still, if you can't make change, being promised partial ownership just didn't sit well, I think, with enough businesses for businesses to really adopt this as a payment system. So he was thinking about this problem, and that might be what spurred this dream he had. So Jeremy Corden started out with this dream. In his dream, there was some kind of a disaster. I mean, it doesn't have to be the full-on apocalypse or something, but it was a situation where the credit card machine was down. I think we've all experienced this actually at some point or another. Say, hey, sorry, but our payment processor isn't working, or our router is down. We don't have internet access right now. I'm sorry, we can't take your card, right? So he imagined this in his dream. He saw like a grocery store. And the manager or owner or somebody was standing out in front of the grocery store saying, I'm sorry, the electricity's out. We can't take payment right now. And he was turning people away. And there was a woman who walked up and said, well, I've got gold. Would you take gold as payment? And she pulled out what looked like dollar bills, except instead of being green paper, they were shiny gold. And she says, I've got gold. Can I buy it with this? And he says, well, if you've got gold, that's fine. Go for it. And he let her in, and she bought her groceries and went on her way. When he woke up from his dream, he thought, I wonder if it's possible that we could make something paper thin, but made out of 24 karat gold. And that was the beginning of the idea for the Goldback. And that's what the Goldback is. It's one Goldback is 1/1000th of a troy ounce of pure gold in a very, very thin format. Now, if that was a coin, it would be like a grain of sand, a BB, a tiny amount of gold. If it was a gold nugget, it'd be like a BB. But when we make it flat and we laminate it, we can make it into this beautiful little Goldback. And now we've got that, and basically that alone, it solves all of these problems. There's no silverback that's exchangeable for goldbacks. There's no paper that you have to worry about trusting somebody else, like France was trusting the United States of America to give them their silver dollars. The gold is physical, it's real, it's in your own hand. Nobody can print it out of thin air. Nobody can devalue it because it's right there in your own wallet. And it's also small enough. This 1/1000th of a troy ounce is small enough you can buy a sandwich for one or two of these. You can buy a loaf of bread for one of these. You can buy a dozen eggs. And my guess is in 1,000 years from now, you'll still be able to buy lunch with one of these. Just like you probably could have 1,000 years ago if we had the technology to make it that small. Because it's just a little piece of gold. Fits right in your wallet. And it's not just one denomination. It has that fungibility. You can make change, right? You can have a 1, a 5, a 10, a 25, a 50. They just have proportionally larger and larger amounts of gold in them. So there's an exchange rate on goldback.com that shows you what it is every day. That's just based on whatever the actual price is that people are buying and selling them for. Today's exchange rate is $4.22 for one Goldback. And yeah, then you can check that out. There's like a calculator there to help figure out your exchanges. And over 1,000 businesses are already accepting these at the cash register, just like they would any other kind of cash. Because why not? It's gold. So yeah, I feel like we're building a strong community around this concept. And I really think that means that whenever there's a crisis, you've got something to fall back on. You've got something that works. And you don't really have to wait for that crisis to start saving some money. One of the biggest problems that we've had lately is inflation. The Goldback has gone from being worth less than $3 to being worth more than $4 just in the last couple of years. And that's just because of inflation. And so here's a fun example for you. My local dollar store. My kids always liked, before we went to the movie theater or whatever, we'd sneak in, some candy. We'd go to the dollar store first, and they would all be able to buy whatever candy they wanted for $1. And then we go to the movie theater, and we could pull out our little candies while we watched the movie. Well, my dollar store, still literally, it's called Dollar Tree. It says one in the shape of a tree on their logo, but they don't sell anything for $1 anymore. They can't. The inflation has killed them. They cannot buy cheap candy and sell it for only $1 anymore. And it reminds me of the old penny candy stores that I heard about from my grandparents. It used to be that you could go in and all the candy was a penny each for any candy you wanted. Now you can't even go to the dollar store and buy candy for $1. It's $1.25 now. And so anytime someone says, hey, let's go to the Dollar Tree, I say, don't you mean the $1.25 tree? Right? But that's just inflation. It's just killing us. Now, if the Dollar Tree wasn't the Dollar Tree, it was the Goldback tree, and everything was one Goldback, they would not have this problem. Because it was, right now it's worth $4.22. You go back 100 years, it probably would have been worth about a penny. Doesn't matter. This amount of gold has been worth a sandwich or a loaf of bread or a dozen eggs for the last 3,000-4,000 years. This amount of gold probably worth the same thing in 1,000 or 2,000 years from now. It's just more stable. And so that's why we feel like we are solving a problem. Economies need stability. And this way, a local economy can have it. Hope that makes some sense to you.
Yeah, it's a very interesting idea. I'll be honest. Like when you were talking about the history of gold being utilized, one of the ideas that popped in my head is like, what if you just turn that into like some uh form of cash type money? That's and then you
Hmm.
brought out the gold back. Oh yeah, there you go, like that, it's right in front of me.
Yep.
Um, it is a very interesting idea in terms of turning gold into the 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 basically. I don't know if you want to call it cash. What do you call it? Gold back? Is that how you kind
Well,
of
we
describe
call it
it?
gold back because it's not a dollar, but
Right.
I would say it's a type of cash. Yeah, it's real money is what it is. So you could call it a currency because it travels in the current of commerce. But we prefer the word money because money should have intrinsic value, real value. And so, like, really, our fiat currency that we use, the US dollar, it's not money, it's just currency. Because it says $1 on it, but what does that mean? It's an abstract concept, really. What makes monopoly money not acceptable at the store? It just depends on what game you're playing. So long as we pretend that these little green pieces of paper are worth something at the store, then they are. And the moment we decide, no, we don't play that game here, just like they don't play Monopoly at Walmart, then it's not intrinsically valuable. It's just an idea, right? And that idea, unfortunately, is losing its credibility all the time. They say the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the American people. Well, we're not giving it as much faith or credit as we used to, clearly. At least our housing prices, for goodness sakes, here in Utah have gone up about 300% in the last few years. It's insane. Those dollars just don't buy what they used to.
So I do want to break that down a little bit, because you mentioned the fact that gold and the gold back wouldn't necessarily change in value, but you also referenced that the value of the gold back has increased since the start of starting the company. How do you can you break that down for the audience? Because if someone's listening
That
to
makes a
what
lot
you
of
just
sense.
said, they go like,
Hmm.
"Wait, what? What are you talking about? How is it not changing value?" So, can you explain that a little bit more
Right.
deeply?
Yeah. So the exchange rate for dollars to goldbacks, it changes just about every day. I mean, it's flat sometimes, but it'll go up by a few cents or down by a few cents every single day. What it really comes down to is, if you think of it this way, it's about your point of reference. It's about where you're at. Um, I would say that a goldback hasn't changed in value, not one tiny bit, from the day that the project started to now. What's changed is the value of the US dollar. The problem is we think in terms of the US dollar. If I say, hey man, how much for that thing? You'll say, oh, $20. You can have it for $20 because we're thinking about the way that we measure things. We measure it in the US dollar. Problem is that measurement keeps changing. One gold back has always been one gold back. The same way that, say, a cup of sugar is a cup of sugar. What's been changing is the US dollar. The US dollar doesn't buy as many gold backs as it used to. The US dollar doesn't buy as many loaves of bread as it used to. It doesn't buy as much a house as it used to, or car as it used to, or gas as it used to. But the gold back is still just 1/1000th of a troy ounce of pure 24 karat gold. Um, and so I can almost imagine it like this. The problem is that we think in terms of the US dollar, and so we don't notice. What's happening is we're getting robbed really slowly by that inflation of the value of everything that we own. Can you imagine if, since I used a cooking analogy, a cup of sugar, can you imagine if the measurements on your recipe were changing all the time? Now that would really screw us up. If they'd be like, oh yeah, get 1 cup of sugar. And it's like, wait a second, was this a 1980 cup of sugar or a 1990 cup of sugar or 2000 cup of sugar or a 2020 cup of sugar? Because those are totally different amounts. Then, that's what's happening with the US dollar. We just don't see it because it's sneaking up on us. Like, too often we think about milk as a carton of milk instead of as a gallon of milk or half gallon of milk. And so this has been one of the most vicious things that's happened to us because of inflation, is that when you buy a bottle of juice, it used to be that it only came in 32 or 64 ounces, right? But now you can go to the store and be like, oh yeah, I want to buy some orange juice, and it'll be 54.5 ounces or 59 ounces or some random other amount of ounces instead of 32 or 64 or a gallon so that you know what you're getting. A half gallon of ice cream. Is it a half gallon or is it 52 ounces of ice cream or something random like that? And what that does is it totally ruins our perception. And that's what they're doing is they're playing with our perception of value and giving us less in a way that they're hoping we don't notice. But what we're doing is we're being robbed little by little. And the whole and this isn't just about you missing out on a few sips of orange juice or me being upset about having one less scoop of ice cream. I could let that go. The problem is it does it to the whole economy. When we don't have standard weights and measures, when we don't have standard measures of value, because the US dollar is an unpredictable measure of value, just like, unfortunately, a Bitcoin is an unpredictable measure of value. Well, the entire economy suffers. It makes it much, much harder for people to do reliable commerce. And really, over time, no economy has ever survived things being too unstable for too long, because then people will hold on to what they have. It becomes less rational to engage in the market. And if it's not rational to engage in the market and people don't create value, that's what really matters. If people are out there working and thinking and dreaming and inventing, if they're not doing that because every time they engage in it, they lose something instead of gain, then our whole culture begins to stifle that innovation that we so essentially need in order to have a thriving community.
So that definitely makes sense. And for the most part, the people, if you're listening, the focus has to be on the dollar losing value versus the gold changing value. And I think
Yep.
that 100% makes sense depending on its connection to a specific resource. Now, I do want to break that down a little bit further, but you mentioned crypto twice, and I'm curious on your thoughts about this because I also agree that crypto, especially since COVID hit, became extremely volatile. It looked like it was rising to the moon. It looked like everything was good. COVID hit, it changed everything about crypto. All the faith in crypto completely went plummeting down to the toilet. It's not gone, obviously. Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're still here, but the faith in it is definitely diminished because of how kind of COVID affected the entire economy and how much the price changed overnight, which is terrible to be honest, because you can lose thousands of
Oh yeah.
dollars because of that. With that said, I what do you think about stable coins? Now, I have heard of a crypto stable coin that very similar to what you guys are doing. Their coins values based off gold. So
Yeah.
one coin or one stable coin X, whatever
Hmm.
the name is, would be maybe one gold or maybe 1/100th of a gold bar
Coin.
or gold in weight. So, what do you think about stable coins, which actually have a set value?
I think it's pretty great. I mean, that's basically what the old gold standard was there was a token called the dollar. There was an idea called the dollar that had a specific definition of its measurement of its amount of gold that it was worth, or the amount of silver that it was worth. And I know a couple of well, there's a couple that I don't care for. I don't love Tether, um, but Pax Gold, Kinesis Gold, those seem to me to be very reliable, trustworthy companies that do vault the gold, and then you can trade portions of ownership. And that's basically what we were doing before we invented the Goldback, right? We took U.S. minted gold eagles, put them in the vault, and people could trade some gold cents. In other words, little fractional ownership of these of the gold as a token, and trade that electronically. And I do think that, again, like I said, that's what we started out doing. We You can still do that through the Alpine Gold Exchange, or through Kinesis, for example, these other stable coins. And as long as they remain trustworthy, as long as the gold really is in the vault, then that token should have value because it's linked to that value. The real danger there, though, that we ran into is that people don't quite have that much intrinsic trust in the institution. Is the gold in there? And here's the other problem. If you want to go and say, no, put the gold in my hand it over, you'd have to have enough gold for them to hand over, which comes in most of these stable things. They have to have a specific thing that they're vaulting for this gold. Well, for us, I should say our precursor, the United Precious Metals Association, you can still find them at upma.org, the United Precious Metals Association. Their idea originally was to have the U.S. minted gold eagle coin. That would be the thing that they would vault. But in order to get that in your hand, you've got to have enough credit with that system, enough tokens to get one whole coin. It's even harder with some of these systems where they want you to have ownership of an entire gold bar, maybe 1,000-ounce gold bar, before you can get your hands on it. Well, what's that worth? About a little over $2 million right now. You'd have to have $2 million worth of their token before they can put the gold in your hand. And so that wasn't good enough for people. People want to be able to transcend that kind of trust in institutions, especially considering the track record. A lot of these institutions doing fractional reserves, where they issue more tokens than there really is gold. And so that's what I think really is the genius of something like the Goldback, is that you can hold the gold in your hand. This is the gold, and it's a fractional enough amount that you can actually just say, you know what, I want to withdraw my gold, and we have no problem with that. We'll just hand you the Goldbacks. Now, on that note, I do have to say we are looking forward to the possibility of using blockchain technology to exchange Goldbacks electronically. But there's still something that I have to say, nothing beats holding it in your hand. But at the same time, when you can't hold it in your hand, let's say you want to buy something from India or China and you want it shipped here, you've got to use an electronic system. You want to be able to transfer that value quickly across international lines. It's a lot harder if you have to physically hand somebody the cash, the Goldbacks, right? And so there's definitely a use case for that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not totally against crypto. I own Bitcoin, I own Ethereum, I own Monero. There's one of my favorite privacy tokens. I think it's really cool. We've got some smart ideas on how to make these things functional and accountable. But the problem with all those systems is, you need something that's real, that grounds it in reality. And we're physical beings. I've got to eat, so I need physical assets, and nothing beats actually just having it in your hand. So I can only hint at it, but there are good things to come for Goldbacks being more exchangeable on international markets through the blockchain that I believe are quickly to come. I just can't tell you exactly who we're partnering with just
Fair
yet.
enough. I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask a follow up question in terms of having that value converted to something that is electronic because I
Mhm.
completely understand the aspect of holding physical currency. And like I said, that COVID made people lose a lot of trust in crypto. So their distrust is
Mhm.
as of right now warranted. But now that you have a currency that you can physically give people and has a value that's a lot more reasonable to exchange with like a one gold back.
Mhm.
I was curious on the aspect of okay, would you want to create something that now is like a stable coin at one
Mhm.
stable coin, one gold back versus just converting the gold back to dollar amounts as of right now. So it sounds like
Exactly,
you
because
guys are going
that's
to
the thing.
that direction.
All right, that's the thing. It's one thing if everything's measured in the dollar. Like Bitcoin right now is measured in the dollar.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with the Bitcoin? You're primarily going to spend dollars to buy it, and then you're going to get dollars when you sell it. And that's the same way it is with most gold and silver. You're going to buy a coin or a bar or something like that at one price. You're going to sell it later for another price, and then you're going to spend the dollars because the dollar is the only thing that's circulating. It's the only thing that's actually being used. Well, Goldback is different. We want to revolutionize the way people actually spend this money. And so the Goldback is unique in that it's kind of an exit. You can turn your dollars into Goldbacks and never look back because there are over 1,000 businesses where you can already spend it. We're hoping to turn that into like 10,000 or a million as soon as possible. So, anybody listening who has a business, you can go to goldback.com and give us your business info. Maybe we don't do anything with it for a while because we only have 5 states that we currently are circulating goldbacks officially as a local currency, right? That's Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, and New Hampshire. But it's still gold anywhere in the world you are. And most places would still recognize a barter or a trade as a legitimate transaction. So, it's still physical gold, so you can still use it anywhere in the world, but only in those 5 states do we actually have it circulating as a legal local currency. Um, but if you're in one of those 5 states and you give us your business info on goldback.com, we start promoting your business. It's basically free advertising. We send people to your business because people want more places they can spend these. And when you think about that, there's over $80 million worth of goldbacks in circulation already. You want a piece of that pie, all you got to do is accept goldbacks at your business. And maybe some of that nearly $100 million will flow to you. So that's not a bad idea. But if you're in one of those states that doesn't have a series yet, we'll still take your info. We just and that way we know maybe where the demand is. Maybe it'll become a future jurisdiction. If you, I suppose with the political side of things is mostly American listeners who listen into this, but it doesn't matter the jurisdiction, whether it's a state or a country. Maybe we can bring goldbacks there if there's enough demand from people. There's basically just 3 things we need in order to make a local community project around goldbacks. We need the gold, first of all, which can be quite expensive, of course. So we need a sponsor usually. That can be a great investment for them because then they make money off the project. 2, we need a business network or a community of people who actually want to circulate that money. And then 3, we need to make sure that we have friendly enough local laws that treat gold as actual money. I think we're approaching 20 states now that recognize that gold is legal tender. So there's a lot of places we haven't gone yet where the laws are very favorable.
So there's a lot of interesting questions I want to ask, based off a couple things that you said, and there's 3 primary questions, and I feel like these 3 questions will lead to the end of the podcast. So the first one is kind of a two-part question in terms of Goldback. Is first, how will a business or maybe just a consumer who sees Goldback using Goldback be able to verify its value when utilizing it in a transaction? And then the second part of the question is there concern that people will manipulate the value because they can't verify it easily? So that is a two-part question.
Right. Okay. So first of all, um, so long as we have the internet, it is fairly easily verifiable. Now, in an electricity going out situation, that is a little bit harder um, because things aren't generally priced in goldbacks. But uh, if you're keeping up on it, it doesn't change very quickly, right? The U.S. dollar has been the most stable fiat currency over the last several years, even with the inflation. Other currencies like the pound and the euro have fluctuated even more, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, as long as you've got the internet, simple solution if you have the internet is go to goldback.com. And even easier than just doing your own math once you see the exchange rate, there is a calculator tool. It is easy to find on goldback.com. You hit the calculator and it'll just do the currency calculation for you. And it's updated every single day with the exchange rates based on, of course, the price of gold. The price of gold goes up and down. Again, I'd say that's a matter of perspective. Gold is always the same. How much gold, how much the dollar is worth, so how many dollars it takes you to buy that gold is what fluctuates. It's the dollar that's unstable. The gold is just a fact of reality. The gold is just the gold. Um, so yeah, I think that's the easy way. Let's say somebody comes into your shop and says, "Hey, I want to spend these goldbacks," and someone's like, "Oh man, I just heard about that on the Purple Political Podcast. How do I do that?" Well, you go to the calculator, you type in the amount in U.S. dollars, it'll do all the math for you. It'll tell you what it's worth. Uh, a lot of our businesses are doing a rather fun thing with this, is that they're treating it as a coupon. So you go there, you find out what it's worth, and you say, you know what, I'll give you a $4.22 discount for every gold back you give me against your purchase. They can also, and so that's one way they can do it. Especially because, just like a coupon, they can send these in to a place like the Alpine Gold Exchange and trade it in for US dollars, the same way that you could take a manufacturer's coupon to the grocery store, turn it in for a discount on your groceries, and then the grocery store can send that coupon in for redemption. They can do the same thing. The other thing that they can do is just treat it like they would any other kind of cash. Oh, yeah, they gave me $4.22 worth of cash, and count it that way in their register, and then count the gold back as $4.22 worth of cash. So in a state that has a sales tax, for example, yes, you still have to pay sales tax on a purchase made with goldbacks. There's one exception. Oddly enough, the Legal Tender Act in the state of Wyoming said that any transaction done with gold or silver shall not have any taxation of any kind. There shall be no taxation of any kind. In other words, the sales tax doesn't even apply. So that's kind of an interesting perk just for the residents of Wyoming. But yeah, it's not too hard to do. It's not too hard to figure out. Now, of course, if the internet were down and you don't have access to those tools, you don't know what the current price of gold is on the exchange rates, the markets. I would say that you still should have a general sense of, well, last I heard on the podcast, it was $4.22. So I'll probably give them at least that much. You could also just price things in it. So I like to think of a goldback as being worth a dozen eggs and a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas, and because it'll be in that ballpark. Sometimes a gallon of milk is more expensive than a gallon of gas. Sometimes it's the other way around. But generally, a goldback is going to be in that ballpark of value, and probably always will be. It just depends on whether or not milk or gas is more scarce. Now, here's the other thing that I think you're hinting at here a little bit, which is sort of like counterfeiting. How do I know if somebody says, hey, I've got a gold back, that it's really worth that it's really a real gold back, or that you're really getting 1,000th of an ounce of gold? And the beauty of that is that gold backs are the most secure form of precious metals that have ever been produced. They have not been counterfeited. I do not believe they will be counterfeited. Our anti-counterfeiting measures on these are state of the art. There's higher security on a gold back, even though it's only worth about $4, than there is on a $100 bill by a long shot. They're really, really not counterfeitable with present day technology, because the proprietary system that we use to manufacture the gold back is patented and secret process. It's called vacuum deposition. Nobody's been able to come up with a even remotely convincing gold back. And here's the other thing that's kind of wild about it. Even if somebody did put in the millions of dollars it would take to convincingly try to create a counterfeit, and then they did counterfeit it, you'd be able to tell anyway, because they weigh something different. A 1 gold back and a 25 gold back, if you hold them in your hand, you know which one's which. Even a blind man can tell you if it's counterfeit, because it weighs more if it's a higher denomination. And that'd be the only way that it'd make any sense to try to counterfeit it anyway, would be to try to make a 50 gold back with only as much gold in it as a 1 gold back. That's the only way that they would make any money doing it. And that wouldn't convince anyone. Even if you were blind, you could tell the difference right in your hand. So yeah, I would say that you can be sure that you've got your value. There's actually a fan of goldbacks who came out on his show recently with a new website called verifiedgoldbacks.com. That's the first one that's plural. It's goldbacks, so it's verifiedgoldbacks.com, as opposed to our official website is just goldback.com. But yeah, verifiedgoldbacks.com, he has 4 different exhaustive tests he's done with random goldbacks he's purchased in the wild from all kinds of different places. He melts them down. He does the acid test. He does the X-ray spectrometry, all kinds of stuff like that. And he verifies through all of those processes. He's never found a goldback that isn't over 100% of what was promised in its value, in its amount of gold. So when you see one for the first time, you've got the real deal.
So I do want to say this regarding what you said, because a lot of what you said I completely think, or I completely believe what you're saying, obviously. And I mean, for the most part, the way that you guys do your process, however you do your process, it makes sense that you will have the most authentic product in reference to the value that you're indicating, of course. What the perspective I'm looking at, because I feel like people who care about their finances will see
Hmm.
huge value of goldbacks. I feel like wealthy people will see a huge value in goldbacks. What the
Don't want to lose
perspective?
that money.
Yeah, but the perspective I'm looking at is the general consumer, because when we know about the dollar, and I'm talking about like the average person that just goes to the store. Because when we're talking about the dollar, yes, the value changes, but at the very least, when you have a dollar in your hand, you're going to be spending a dollar. The price that you're about to buy is just different. It's easy for these people to comprehend what they're using in a very particular circumstance and situation.
Yep.
In the situation regarding the gold back, if you have the gold back, a lot of people are not going to want to do the extra steps to figure out the value of, okay, I got this, now what? Yeah, you said, oh, I could look up on a website. It's like, I don't want to do that. Just give me dollars. I know this is dollar. I don't want to do the extra step, because we know how people are. They want to
Yep.
do something, they want to leave. They don't want to do the extra steps. They want to be lazy about it, which is,
Sure.
fair enough for the most part. And
Yeah.
when
I
that
mean,
takes
you do what you're
place,
familiar with.
yeah, and when that takes place, um, the other aspect about it is, okay, the gold back is what it is, of course, but the other person who's giving me the gold back or is trying to use the gold back, they just automatically at that situation say, this popcorn is two goldbacks. And in reality, it's less than one goldback. But you as an
Hmm.
individual won't be able to determine that value in that situation if you're just a normal everyday person. So
Right.
I'm the reason why I'm bringing these up is because when you're talking about currency, you want to have, yes, it will appeal to smart individuals, people who have wealth, but how do you plan to adjust this to appeal to the average day citizen?
Right. And it is true. It does take, it takes an extra step, an extra way of thinking. Um, the funny thing is it's already so arbitrary. Whether or not a bag of popcorn is worth $1 or $8 or $100 or $1,000, it all just depends on what price tag they wanted to stick on it. And if people just say, that's too much, I'm not buying it, then they don't sell them. That's the free market, supply and demand. People already set their prices based on whatever they think they can get away with. And so, yeah, I actually ran into that problem with goldbacks. There's a there's a place I went into. They said, yeah, we'll absolutely accept goldbacks, but we're not going to accept them at the exchange rate that most people use. We're going to give you like less than half. We're going to overcharge you a ton if you want to use goldbacks because I've got to use the calculator. I've got to do things differently. That's too much work. I don't want to be bothered. So if yeah, we'll take your goldbacks, but we're gonna gouge you. And I was like, well, forget it then. If anything, if I'm spending goldbacks with you, I'm doing you a favor, not the other way around. I can turn my goldbacks into US dollars anytime I feel like it. I just want to use the goldbacks because I want to save and preserve my wealth. And if I spend them with you, I'm going to be save. You're going to be saving and preserving your wealth because you accepted them. So it's a good thing that I'm spending these with you. And so I said, no, I'm not going to spend them there. In fact, on the other side, I know a bunch of businesses that accept goldbacks that will give discounts if you pay in goldbacks. They'd prefer you to spend the goldbacks than the dollars. So they'll give you, 5% off or 10% off if you pay in goldbacks instead of dollars. But yeah, the regular everyday person, how do you get them to? There's an educational challenge here, right? I can talk all day about the history of ancient Egypt or whatever about gold, and yeah, that's interesting to some people, but a lot of people are gonna be like, "Look, I don't want to be bothered. I just want it to be simple." And it's true. Right now, the U.S. dollar is accepted basically everywhere in the world. I mean, you can even take cash U.S. dollars in other countries, and they'll say, "Well, I can probably get something for that. I'll trade you." They'll take them. And so that's the big hurdle. We have to build community around it. We got to build more networks. We got to build more businesses. I was bragging, but it's not a great brag, I suppose, that there's over 1,000 businesses. It's over 1,100 last I checked that are listed in the states that we operate in that accept goldbacks. Um, it's over 700 just in the state of Utah where I live. So the other states have a while to catch up because we were the first state that adopted it. But I still can't spend them everywhere. And so, yeah, I think little by little, it's just going to have to grow based on those people who are willing to do a little tiny bit of extra effort for more value. You do a little bit of you earn money this way. You're just going to save your money by going to that little bit of extra effort to use the calculator, to use the gold back. In fact, here's one of the most interesting things about a gold back. There are sellers that sell goldbacks for less than the posted exchange rate. How do they do that? Well, because the posted exchange rate is based on what people are actually using it for in commerce, but it costs us less than that to manufacture one. And so, and that's a darn good thing. Otherwise, we'd be out of business. We wouldn't be able to manufacture them. We do make a little bit of money manufacturing them. But yeah, if you could buy a goldback for say $3.95 and spend it for $4.22, you're saving money. Well, there's an advantage. You don't want to save money because you can't be bothered. Well, go ahead and don't bother. But I'm telling you, sooner or later, that inflation is going to catch up with your pocketbook, and you're going to think to yourself, "Dang, I wish I'd gone to a little bit of trouble before and just used the darn goldbacks." And we're kind of counting on that. That once we educate people, and the more time goes on, the more businesses accept, and the more people will say to themselves, "Man, I wish I'd gotten into this earlier. I might have saved some money." And that's a motivation I think everybody can get behind, even though it does take a little bit of extra effort to either have a business where you price things in goldbacks, or you have to use an exchange rate calculator. But I don't control the U.S. dollar. But I can tell you one thing: it's going to be worth less next year. It's been worth less every year. It's going to keep happening. $1 is going to be worth less every year, always, because that's just how the dollar is designed. That's what the dollar does. And so the longer people put off trying to get in on the goldbacks, the more money they're going to lose.
For me, my personal opinion about the Goldbacks as of right now, based off everything you said, and then I'm gonna ask my final question, to kind of wrap things up, is that as of right now, I see the Goldback as kind of like a investment strategy from my perspective, at the very least, in the sense that if you want to be wise with your wealth, then you know that something stable like gold is already a good thing. But now you're able to divide the value in more usable ways. That's extremely valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
that type of currency that you can always have at your ready, maybe put it in the safe when it's times like, okay, we're gonna bring out the gold, and bring out the gold backs. Or when it comes down to handling business with, you know, very, very wealthy individuals, the exchange of this type of currency is just a lot more safe. And like you said, you can even save money, and I feel like it's more efficient as well. So there's a lot of intrinsic value from the gold back in terms of an
Mm-hmm.
investment opportunity, in terms of building wealth, in terms of a strategy from my point of view.
Yep.
My only concern as of right now, beyond that, is if we make this, and I'm just gonna put this out there like an extreme
Sure.
hypothetical. We're gonna reach all the way towards the end goal. If we make gold back the national currency, my worry would be, first, the country with the most gold will have the most power, which in turn, America, I don't know if it has the most gold. Personally, I just don't know.
Right.
So America could lose a lot of power, which obviously they don't want to lose a lot of power and a lot of influence and a lot of authority. And two, I also don't know this as well, is can we trust gold as a resource in the long term? And I don't know about that either. These
Sure.
are just two things I just don't know about.
You
So
know,
that's like my final question in terms of my two concerns.
yeah. Right now you can't manufacture gold because it's an element. Then again, I did hear they use the Giant Hadron Collider in Switzerland, right? They use the Giant Collider to actually turn a few molecules of lead into gold, just like the ancient alchemists wanted to do. I thought that was
Interesting. Okay.
fascinating. So it
Yep.
is technically possible. Now, it cost them millions of dollars to make a few atoms of gold out of lead, but so it
Right.
wasn't exactly cost effective. Um, but yeah, you've got some interesting points there. I like to say at Goldbacks, one of the things we like to say is that we've democratized gold. We've taken gold out of the hands of only the rich, ultra rich, the elites, and made it possible for everyone to own it. There's even a kids TV show, the Tuttle Twins. They do like libertarian politics. So they were in favor of like the gold standard. So they thought this was fun, and they got involved. Um, and they were saying even a kid can own gold if it's gold backs. Right? Was their motto. So it's true. Anybody can have access to the gold because it's more accessible this way. But what happens if somebody has all the gold? Actually, that was a joke in the movie Aladdin, the Disney movie Aladdin. He said, "You've heard of the golden rule, haven't you? He who has the gold makes the rules." um, so yeah, it's true. You can still have wealth inequalities. You can still have power imbalances. You can still have all those things, but you can have those in any monetary system. I suppose, as much as I'm touting the Goldback as being this massive problem solver, this thing that solves problems in unstable markets and in political instability, in all kinds of things, I think the Goldback could help with. But it's true, it can't fix all of our problems. I was talking about Aladdin. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. I'll go back to that. The joke in Aladdin was, you've heard of the golden rule, haven't you? He who has the gold makes the rules. That's what Jafar says to Aladdin at one point in his disguise. And yes, so wealth inequalities, political inequalities, those things can still happen, even in a world with a better monetary system. But I do think that it solves a lot of our problems, having something like the gold back, because it does one thing that our current system doesn't. Well, it does several things that our current system doesn't, but one of the main things it does that our current system doesn't is it creates a certain amount of accountability. You either have the money or you don't have the money. You either paid it or you didn't pay it. It's not none of this underhanded stuff about changing how much milk is in your carton. None of this underhanded stuff about not knowing what it's worth. It's accountable, it's clear, it's honest money. And so I think that honest money is often disliked by dishonest men. But honest money is usually accepted by honest men. And will we still have problems? Yes, definitely. There's still a lot of inequality in this world. There's still a lot of violence in this world. But we've tried to democratize gold. We've tried to make it possible for anybody to obtain if they are willing to work for it. And then that value that they save is safe. It can't be inflated away. So yeah, I wish it would solve all of our problems. I like to pretend that it could, and it can't. But it does solve some problems.
For, from what I'm hearing, at the very least, you can definitely say that it is a solution that can benefit people greatly. Because at the end of the day, having a currency that will be stable, that has connected value that we all understand gold, we know what it is. But having
Mm-hmm.
something like a gold back is beyond efficient and beyond usable. Based on whatever situation you did. I mean, Benjamin brought up the "hey, I want to buy a sandwich" example quite frequently, and it's true. I mean, you're not gonna throw a good gold coin for that. You're not gonna give them a gold bar. You're gonna now, but you can give them a gold back. And having something like that, some a value that you can always kind of go back to, and we know at the very least, like, if you want to save gold, people will have their coins, people will have their bars, and they will then go to the bank and get actual money from it. Well, now you have a gold back, so you could just exchange it. So the possibilities is endless from what I'm seeing. So I really do like
Yep.
the solution, at the very least, something that can really change up how people handle their wealth and can be something that they can rely upon more so than their current bank system as of right now, of course. So that
Right. And
challenge
that's
is always we something that's always good, especially in a capitalist market. But go ahead.
Yeah, and it really transcends politics to bring it back to the theme of this podcast, right? It really transcends politics. Everybody needs money. Everybody needs honest money. Everybody needs the opportunity to operate in our free market system. It doesn't matter if you are wanting to organize your union around democratic principles. Goldbacks is going to help. If you're a libertarian and you want to go on the gold standard, well, go ahead. No one's stopping you. The Goldback is the gold standard. Just go ahead and use it. It's the gold. If you're a Republican and you're conservative and you're worried about fiscal irresponsibility and things like that in government, we'll try to encourage your government to invest in gold or use gold, because then you'll know that at the very least, even if they're spending it on programs or in ways you don't approve of, that they're spending something real that they have to be really accountable for. They have to really tax in order to really spend. They have to, it creates a certain kind of political common ground, I think. Everybody needs it. Everybody will benefit from it. So you might as well organize your community around a principle like that, where it's something you can depend on. Heck, even the Green Party, come to think of it, has often been really interested in the populist need for standards in our society. Well, the Goldback creates a standard of value that's more useful and more verifiable as a product. So I think that really it doesn't matter what political background you come from. I'm hoping that Goldback's appeals on a political level, even from all sides.
All right. And so you can let the people know again, what are the states that you can use it as a currency that allow it? What are the states that
Okay, so we've got
yeah.
5 states that are circulating it as a local currency. That's Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, and New Hampshire.
I
Uh,
was hoping you said Ohio, but all right.
Too bad, not Ohio yet. We'll have to
Almost.
see. I don't know what the laws are like in Ohio. We got to make sure that they recognize that gold is legal tender, and then we need a sponsor to buy enough to help us buy enough gold and all that to bring it there, and a bunch of businesses in Ohio that want to use it. But I should say, beyond those 5 states, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, and New Hampshire, there are other states that already recognize that gold is legal tender. And so whether it's a Goldback or a Gold Eagle from the U.S. Mint, you can actually use Goldbacks in those states. One of them that's a really fun one is Texas. Texas has a state gold repository. The state government has set it up where you can deposit and withdraw gold, it will be kept safe and insured by the state of Texas itself. And that state gold repository recognizes and uses Goldbacks. So, even though Texas isn't one of the states that we have going yet, we don't have enough businesses there yet. I hope any Texas listeners will give us their business info so that we can build a network there and maybe eventually come out with a Texas Goldback. But even right now, people can already use it and already legally use it in any of those states. Idaho has a legal tender act, Oklahoma, Tennessee, a bunch of places where you can actually already use them. There just isn't necessarily a local currency project there yet. But if you want to make it happen in one of those states like Ohio, I hope that you'll give me a call. Let's make it happen.
All right. All right. So with that said, where can they find the information regarding the Goldback? And what else you can plug regarding Goldback and your personal information?
You bet. So goldback.com, that's the main information site. You don't actually buy them there. Goldback is a company. We get these manufactured. We get them out to distributors, gold sellers, places like JM Bullion, SD Bullion, Finest Known, Hero Bullion, Money Metals, all of these places that sell a lot of gold coins already. We sell to them. They sell to the public. There's also the Alpine Gold Exchange. I really love them. And the United Precious Metals Association. I'm a member of the United Precious Metals Association. You can open an account just like a bank where you can use goldbacks instead of dollars in your account. That's a great thing to do. Go to upma.org for the United Precious Metals Association. So upma.org. And there you can open an account. It's free to have an account even, where you can get all kinds of services and use the Goldbacks. So I encourage all of those things. And then, of course, the main thing is if you've got a business, you got a side hustle, you got a shop, you got You chop wood, you fix cars, you cut hair, whatever you do, go to goldback.com and go to the business sign up and just fill out the form. Just give us your contact info, and that'll give us a chance to either join a robust, thriving community like we have here in Utah, if you're in Utah, to use Goldbacks, or at least give us your info so that we can know if we can bring Goldbacks to your state someday. And the only way we're going to know that is if we know we have enough businesses there where people want to use it. So, so yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can get involved that way, and then hopefully sooner or later we can maybe I'll come back on and tell you a little bit about crypto projects if we can get a stable Goldback token on a blockchain that we can use. So we're looking to partner with that as well. So there's a lot of opportunities.
All right, excellent. Well, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Like he said, all that information will be in his profile on my website. The information will be in the description. Of course, you can check out everything regarding Goldback. And if you enjoyed today's episode, rate it 5 stars, share with your friends, like and subscribe. And hope you guys enjoyed. You all have a good one. Take care.
If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, then this is going to be a cut down, shortened version of the full podcast. This is the most important point of the podcast, but if you want to see the full video version, then feel free to watch it on the Roku app, on Pod Nations. If you want to see the full audio version, make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify to listen to the full thing. Hope you guys enjoy this, like and subscribe, and let's return back to the episode.